Good evening. Three things I'd like to highlight tonight from the middle school. The first would be is that Mrs. Bergman, my art teacher, submitted 4 pieces of work to the Scholastic Art this year contest, and we're proud in our first year we have a winner, and it is an honorable mention, so not a gold key, but it's a start for us. So thank you to Mrs. Bergman and Peyton Weber, an 8th grade student in our building. Her name and everything is posted under the Milwaukee Art Museum page, and she has an opportunity to go down there for the reception and so forth with Mrs. Bergman. So kudos to Peyton and Mrs. Bergman for that area. The second piece I'd like to highlight is I'd like to say thank you. We have every teacher in our building is on a committee, and our Positive School Experience Committee is made up of Mrs. Kassengren, Mrs. Kurz, Mr. Picton, Mrs. Henning, Mrs. Walters, and Mrs. Hayden. And this group of teachers, we were giving the Explore test, and this was supposed to take place that day before Christmas break, that last day. And the 8th grade students would be very on task in the morning taking their Explore testing, but we had to trick that back to when we got back. So with our Explore in the morning, this group of teachers organized, planned a whole school event that we did for a half a day in our building where students were involved in a lot of different experiences they typically don't have, with some crafts, some taekwondo. We had some representatives come in, some crafting and activities that took place in the gym, just kind of a laid back type of thing after the ECT test in the morning. So thank you to those 6 teachers for organizing that. The last group of teachers I'd like to recognize tonight would be the teachers that spent 3 days and 2 nights at Trees for Tomorrow. They just got back on Friday night. I think we rolled in at about 11:15. And first off, I'd like to recognize we had some volunteers from the community. Runsheimer, Racine Grain Company, Cotton Exchange, Mary Basin, and Pharmacy Station and River City Auto Body that donated money to the trip for our kids. All of them have written thank you notes to them. So we had those donations come in from the community, and we took 82, I believe, students up to Trees for Tomorrow out of Eagle River. Every student has to, Mrs. Henskin stamps this nice little booklet because we don't take books and stuff, but puts this here, and kids have to respond to the different things that happen. And one of the final places is where they have to write a letter to the school board. And so I just brought around a couple to read tonight that the teachers picked out. Dear School Board, Trees for Tomorrow is a very important trip. We get to experience a different perspective of life in Waterford. Everyone is close to each other, and there are so many people. Here at Trees, we can experience the calmness, the silence of nature. At the same time, we learn so much. We learn about identifying trees, lake ecology. We learn about facts. For instance, owls can survive, and they can turn their heads. This trip is very important to students, and it helps us out a lot. I'll just read one more to you. This is an essential trip for students at Foxborough Middle School. The educational trip teaches students to better appreciate the outdoors, wildlife, and trees. They learn how to survive with minimum resources in different situations. Additionally, they learn that some wildlife is misunderstood. For example, wolves are not as bad as some believe. Finally, we learn how to reuse trees for multiple purposes. Students learn so much on this educational trip they need to go. So kudos goes out to Mrs. Nelson. And Mrs. Nelson's son, Johnny, volunteered as he was home from college break. Mr. Meineke, a 7th grade teacher in my building, Mrs. Panur, Mr. Henskin, Mrs. Yorty, and Mr. Brosick, the head organizer of all this, and those teachers, and Johnny, I just can't thank them enough for what they did and the time they spent with the students, and the kids just came back today excited about what they learned. So that's my update. Any questions for the middle school? Thank you.
Bob, I have one more congratulations that was at the bottom of my pile here, but it's actually a group of Evergreen students. Before Christmas, they were awarded an art award. So I want to thank Mrs. Olkey, first off, the art teacher, but then Chloe McClure out of 5th grade won 3rd place, and it's called the Society's Asset Youth Art Contest. So she was recognized for her project. She received a ribbon and a $25 check. And then there are 3 2nd grade students who also won, Elise Updegrove, Ella Greil, and Jack Schumacher. They also won some prizes, some ribbons, and some cash gifts as well. So real happy to announce those budding and aspiring artists that we have here at Evergreen.
I have a few additions, if that's right. I just wanted to thank Amy G. I had an awesome opportunity to watch her in action, working with some different students on some author projects. One in particular was very near and dear to the child's heart, and it was interesting and very fascinating how Amy worked with him to really be able to get across what he wanted to get across to the author about some things that had happened to him in his life. So that was really cool. I want to acknowledge Julie Vogley. Can't really go into details about that, but in her work with a particular family, I just was amazed at what she was able to do and to make happen for this particular child. And Ronna Fries, who's the ELL teacher, is piloting Rosetta Stone, which we think of as a foreign language, but also their biggest, their highest level of performance is in the English area. And so Ronna is using it with a couple of our ELL students to assist them with improving their English. So I thought that was really neat of her to do. And I just wanted to acknowledge that Ronna Fries, when I observe her in a classroom, I see the urgency of instruction for her math students. Like, it's just so exciting to observe. Also one other thing is I wanted to acknowledge the IT department for the virus that they dealt with, especially regarding to MAPS testing and how they assured that everything was, all of the information was found and not too many people had to retake a test. So that was really good.
Cameron, you have anything to report?
Just a question about it might be more so canon. By the way, before I say that, let me say how great it sounds. We have great teachers interacting all over the place, doing tremendous things with the students in this district. And the students obviously are excelling, hearing all these awards and art contests that we're winning, and the Trees for Tomorrow, which has turned out to be a great thing for the students to do. So thanks and kudos to the staff. I mean, there's just tremendous things happening in this district. One question I have is on the math testing. Are we utilizing the new laptops for that, or are we strictly in lab on the?
We're still in the lab at this
Okay.
time. Darlene had talked for next year, definitely to try and roll those over, especially at the middle school.
That's the middle school obviously, but I'm more interested too on the elementaries with the number of grades we have, depending what grade level we're doing math testing at, if we have enough utilization there for all the different classes at the time.
Just with testing environment, and we talked a little bit about just where the laptops are as far as breakout areas, and just having more of that controlled environment and having it in the lab at this time just as a better testing environment for the kids.
So we're doing okay with kind of access?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.